People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
We are not turning back!
She'll never make it!
She has to try!
Ever since I was a girl, I've had a longing for the water. To swim, for me, is like nothing else in the world.
My name is Mercedes Gleitze. I'm a swimmer, and I'm told you might train me.
Cold, extreme fatigue. It's best at the strongest of men.
Well, thank God I'm a woman.
I understand the water, its movements, its rhythm, and sometimes I fancy it understands me too.
What if I don't make it?
I'll wager you can arrive at 1,000 reasons why you won't. All you have to do is hang on to the one that says you can.
Gleitze will go down in history as the first British woman to ever swim the English Channel. Mrs. Edith Gade splashed onto the sand following the shock completion of an English Channel swim.
For this evening's honourable guests, please put their hands together in vigorous applause for Mrs. Edith Gade!
I can assure you, that woman is not to be trusted.
In this country, Miss Gleitze, an unmarried woman at your age raises suspicion. Isn't it best you step aside now and avoid further humiliation?
I did swim the town.
I know you did, but they'll never believe you.
Show them what you know to be true, that you can swim the English Channel. Come on, girl.
Are you sure you want to carry on with all this? There's no shame in quitting.
No, I'm not quitting. I've got to make it. I've got to.
Hey folks, welcome to a special episode of The Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I'm talking with Elliott Hasler all about his new film, Vindication Swim, and is the story of a woman who crosses the English Channel way back in post-World War I Britain. The film stars Kristen Callahan and John Locke. It will be hitting the US pretty darn soon. Definitely seek that one out, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Can you kind of tell me how you got involved with movie making?
I've always loved film. I've always had a passion for film ever since I was really young. And then when I was 10 years old, the school I was at the time, instead of doing lessons for a week, they made a film. It was an adaptation of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And that was my first experience of making a film, obviously at a very amateur level. As just kids in a classroom kind of fooling around. But that, yeah, it was I learned on a very crude scale how films were made and how they were constructed, from the script to the production of it to the editing and the post and all of that. So I fell in love with it from that moment, really. And then from then on, from the age of 10, I'd just been making little short films and with friends and family, and they kind of got bigger and better, and the quality just improved. And then when I was 14, I decided to make a feature about my great-grandfather, his experiences in the Second World War. So he was a prisoner of war in Italy. He escaped and he made this incredible 200-kilometer journey across the country, basically, evading the Nazis and living with the resistance and things. So I turned that into a film over the course of 3 years, between the ages of 14 and 16. And that, for me, was my film school. I'd never studied film, I'd never been to film school. So I really learned a lot doing that. And it was a very amateur project. It was just friends and family on the weekends. We were putting it together and stuff. It did incredibly well for what it was. I then got picked up for a UK and a US release last year. We signed a deal with Paramount for it, for France, UK, and Italy. So yeah, it's come out all around the world now, and it's done incredibly well for what it was. So that was then what led me on to Vindication Swim.
That sounds so ambitious. I mean, how did you even decide, okay, I'm going to do this and then just tackle that as a project? I mean, 3 years to make this. And from what I understand, you also starred in it.
I did, yeah. You notice I'm not in Vindication Swim. But yeah, I did act in it. It was an ambitious thing. I think, especially trying to tackle the Second World War and a subject matter as grand as that. It was about $3,000 probably that we spent on it. It cost next to nothing for a film. It was very ambitious at the time, but I think that was what was so interesting about it. It was quite a grand story, but it was also a very family sort of oriented story. I'd grown up hearing these stories with my great grandfather, and that was what inspired me to make it. So there was a real kind of family connection with it as well, which I think made it slightly smaller, but then obviously the story is grand. So yeah, it was a really fun one to spend 3 years working on.
And how much help did you have with that? Was that like friends and family, or did you actually employ people?
Oh, no, we didn't. No, it was literally just friends and family. They just came along and helped out. We rented a few military uniforms and that kind of thing. But yeah, no, there was no sort of industry backing on it. It was very, very grassroots.
So how did you get the idea for Vindication Swim?
Well, that one, I was looking for another film to do after World War II, The Long Road Home. And I kind of stumbled across this story of Mercedes Gleitze. And then I learned that we were from the same hometown. She was born in Brighton on the south coast of England, which is where I'm from. And I'd never heard of her. I didn't know who she was. I'd never heard of her channel swims or anything like that. And the more I read about her, I thought, this is shocking that I don't know who this woman is, because she's incredible. What she did back then in the 1920s as a woman, to go out there and to achieve all of that with the whole of society against you, and then to go and battle Mother Nature itself in order to achieve your dreams. I thought there was something very powerful in that, and was shocked I didn't know her really. So the project was born out of that, this sort of idea of celebrating this extraordinary woman from my hometown and bringing her story back into the world and putting it out there. The German element particularly was in Britain at the time, because obviously it's a few years after the First World War, so there was a lot of anti-German kind of sentiment. So yeah, she had to face a lot of racism in that sense, for sure. Yeah.
Tell me about your actress. I mean, she is amazing.
Yeah, she was incredible. Kirsten did a fantastic job, and this is sort of her debut screen performance. She really went the extra mile. We trained her up for 3-4 months in open water swim training, intensive swimming training really, before the production, because she was adamant that she was going to do it all herself. She didn't want any body doubles. She didn't want anyone else to step into Mercedes' shoes. She wanted to immerse herself in the water to really embody the character. So yeah, over the course of, it took 3 years to do this one as well. There seems to be like a recurring theme there with my movies. So over the course of 3 years splashing around in the English Channel, Kirsten did everything up to 4 hours at a time in the water. It was really a feat of endurance for her, bringing Mercedes to the screen as well.
Also, doing a period piece is a huge endeavor too.
The period element paled in comparison to the challenges we faced shooting out at sea, but it was nonetheless, it is difficult bringing the 1920s to life on a very tight budget. This wasn't a Hollywood film. We didn't have much money at all to throw at it. So what we did, we relied on community support really for it. So things like the vintage cars in the film, what we do is we ring up car clubs and say, we're making this film, we haven't really got money to pay you, but we can pay for your gas, we'll provide you lunch and all that. And I say 9 times out of 10, they came back and say, don't worry about the gas, don't worry about the lunch. We just want to bring our cars along, want to be part of a film and experience that. And we just want to celebrate this story. So that was how we did it, really. It was just relying on just the very generous and goodwill of the community.
Yeah, how was it even putting this project together? I mean, it's just, again, super ambitious.
This one was very ambitious. I'm a big fan of Jaws, and Spielberg, in an interview, said that he would never recommend anyone go film out on the water. I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but that was essentially the gist of it. So that, for me, I thought that would be cool to go out there and do the opposite of what he said and try and film out at sea. And I can see in hindsight why he said it, because it's very difficult. But it came out of that. It was this sort of challenge that I wanted to pursue of shooting a movie out on the English Channel. I've always grown up right by the sea, so the English Channel was integral to my life. So it was nice to have that environment to work in. But yeah, that presented its own sort of levels of challenges that we just never foresaw, really. Sometimes we'd go out there, we'd get maybe 1 or 2 shots in the can, have to abandon the shoot because the wind would change or the tide would change and it just wouldn't be safe to carry on. At the very first day that we went out, everyone was struck with really bad seasickness. It's probably a little too rough to have actually gone out. And then John Locke, who played Mercedes' coach in the film, he'd be vomiting over one side of the boat, then he'd turn to the other side of the boat, deliver his lines, and then go back to the other side to vomit again. I think that epitomizes what we were up against when we were out there, but also just how dedicated everyone was to bringing it to the screen.
Well, I can't even imagine the challenges when it came to, the conditions of the skies and making sure that everything matched when it came to that. I'm sure like the color grading must have been very difficult.
It was quite challenging. We really paid painstaking attention to detail to that while we were making it. It was important that it didn't look like different days during the same scene. Because some scenes in the film, we'd shot parts of it on year 1, picked it up in year 2, couldn't get it all because something happened, like the winds changed or whatever, and then had to finish it off in year 3. They're 3 years apart, some scenes, like the shots between the actors and stuff. So yeah, doing that and making sure the clouds look the same in the background and everything, that was very challenging. I think there was only one shot where we actually had to use visual effects to remove the clouds. Everything else we pretty much managed to nail. And then, like you say, with the advancement of color grading, it was fine tuning and tweaking with that. But we had a great team for the post-production. We worked with Warner Brothers, Delane Lee in London, Soho. So Asa Scholl did our color. He did The Crown. He did Mission Impossible. He's worked on some great stuff. So he's a fantastic colorist, and he knew what he was doing, and then did a fantastic job on this film.
What did you actually shoot on?
It was a tiny little DSLR. It was nothing particularly great, really. We just needed something that was small and lightweight and that we could fit in the waterproof housing. Just take it out at sea.
Yeah, I mean, at least with Spielberg, I want to say a lot of that was shot in a tank rather than the actual, ocean. So that must have just been crazy to, have the waves and nothing under your control, just at the mercy of nature completely.
Yeah, we really were. I mean, it gave us incredible respect for the sea and for the English Channel. But yeah, we had to take safety very seriously as well. We'd always bring a number of lifeguards out with us, and the Coast Guard knew. And it was a big logistical kind of nightmare, really, just to arrange one shoot. And we were out there for 3 years. So this went on for a long time.
The scheduling must have been a nightmare too, just to make sure that your people had free time, that they were able to come out and be a part of that shoot.
We rotated the crew that we were using on it just for that reason. It was hard to get everyone together. So we had a range of different safety people and stuff who we could pull in at different times. But obviously the actors, they've got to be the same. So what was fortunate in that case was COVID had hit in the middle of the shoot. So no one was doing anything. So all the actors weren't booked on other roles or anything like that. They were all still around. So we were able to grab them. But I think if we were doing it now, we would really struggle to have everybody in that location over the course of 3 summers.
What kind of safety precautions did you have to do just because of COVID?
Filming out at sea was quite helpful because we didn't have anyone bothering us for ensuring we were complying. We complied as much as we needed to, but obviously being out there was made a lot easier than filming on land. But it was quite good in the UK. COVID was the film industry was one of the things that COVID didn't really impact that badly. They still allowed us to go out to film, provided we had the right paperwork and things, which we did. Yeah, it didn't really impact it in a particularly negative way, I don't think, aside from it pushed the production back by, I'd say, about a year. Aside from that, I think it helped the production. It made people more generous, I think more willing to help out because they wanted to get back out, do something creative, do something fun after being locked away for so long.
Sorry, I keep going back to Spielberg, but also thinking of just how young you are and how young he was when he was starting out, and just the disrespect that he got from so many people. Did you run across that at all?
I think a lot of people didn't think the film was going to do particularly well or even get finished because of the challenge that we'd taken on for ourselves. There was a lot of doubters on it, for sure. I don't really pay that much attention to it, really, because I knew in my head what we were doing, and I had a clear vision of what the film was going to be and how we were going to do it. I just went ahead and just nose down and carried on with what I was doing. And I think, for me, I think that's the best way of dealing with situations like that, is to just be confident in your own ability and confident in yourself and just go on from there. But the film, it really did incredibly well, and it shut everyone up after it came out. And it had a great release here in the UK, releases for an indie film for a long time. It was way beyond what we'd anticipated. We thought we would get maybe 1 or 2 weeks in theaters, and we ended up having this sort of huge 18-week run. across 300 theatres in the UK, which is totally unexpected, but incredible to see. And then off the back of that, now we're coming out to the US to bring the film to audiences out there.
I really liked your time structure that you had in the script, and I was curious, did you always intend to tell it in that kind of fractured time way?
That kind of came about in the edit, actually. It was always slightly fractured, but I think we then changed it around a little bit more because there was a subplot in the film it wasn't serving any purpose. So we cut it out and then used that sequence as part of a flashback, and it worked a lot better. Yeah, that was born out of the edit and trimming it down. We shot so much footage for this film that I think the first cut came in at about 3.5 hours, which for an indie film is just far too long. So we trim it back to a cool 90 minutes. So yeah, obviously, inevitably stuff had to go and we had a little bit of reorganization to do.
Are you going to release a deluxe Blu-ray with all that edited footage?
I think the version we've got is nice. It's this nice, tight film. I think it tells the story in the way it ought to be told, I think. I think you go down a rabbit hole with that. I'll be like Francis Ford Coppola, still tinkering away with it while I'm in my 80s.
Have you only directed stuff that you've written, or have you directed things that other people have written as well?
So far, it's only been my own, what I've written myself. I'd be open to it if the right script came along, but it's just worked out so far that I've only directed my own words.
What are you planning on next?
So I got a couple of films on the go. One's a sort of a true crime thriller set on the south coast of England in the 1930s. So it's a much darker turn than Vindication Swim, but I think it's always nice to do a bit of a segue and go on and do something that's a lot different. And then there's a First World War survival thriller sort of film as well. So yeah, great scripts for both of those. One I've co-written and then one I've written myself, and we're just pitching them out at the moment and trying to raise the funds.
More challenges with period pieces, it sounds like.
Yeah, I tend to be drawn to those. I think there's a lot to be found in kind of these old stories that there's something quite nice about unearthing them and then bringing them to the screen. And for myself as the director, when you walk onto set, particularly on Vindication Swim, it's very much like this when we did the street scenes and stuff. You walk onto set and it feels as though you've stepped back in time. There's all these people in old clothes, there's all these old cars and stuff. And it's a really cool experience. So then for me, my job is to make that translate for the audience so they can feel what I'm feeling as if I've really immersed myself in this world. And I think there's something very interesting about doing that on a period film.
Yeah, the costumes in Vindication Swim are amazing and everything looks so good.
Yeah, those are all original. We managed to source pretty much, an entire wardrobe of original 1920s pieces. We sort of went all over the place looking for them, like thrift stores, eBay. We went everywhere trying to find these old pieces of clothing.
That's amazing. I thought for sure you had just a genius costumer.
No, I don't think we created any new costume for the film. Even the swimsuit that Mercedes Gleitze wears in the film, that was an original 1920s woolen bathing suit that we had to stitch up in between shoots because it would start falling apart in the sea when we were using it.
Yeah, I like woolen bathing suit. That must have been so heavy when she got out of the water.
It's tiny when you first put it on because it shrinks up. And then once you go in the water, it becomes this baggy sort of mess. So we had this routine where everyone on the boat would turn around to allow a person to come out and then quickly put a towel on and then we could turn back around again because these things, they become so baggy once they get wet.
With your earlier film, it was more not professional, but with this, you have professional actors. How was that experience of directing professionals?
Obviously, there's a huge difference in terms of the quality of the acting. Obviously, working with pros, they know what they're doing and the performances are always going to be a lot sharper. It's nice in a way because I think it makes my job easier. I don't have to direct quite as intensely as I would with an actor or someone who's not a professional actor. You're trying to coax the performance out of them. Whereas with this, you can do a few rehearsals, then you can sit back and then the character finds itself within them, which I think is a nice experience. So it was definitely a good, fun thing to look at kind of the comparison of working with the amateur actors in the first film and then moving on to pros in this one. But it's a different ball game really. And it's nice to work with people who are really on the ball with it.
Is there a good place online for people to keep up with you and your work?
They can follow me. It's just my name at Elliott Hasler on Instagram or through the film at Vindication Swim Film, also on Instagram. And then, my website and things like that as well.
Well, Elliott, thank you so much. This was great talking with you, sir.
Oh, no worries. Thanks so much for having me on.